Imagine being invited to the most exclusive restaurant in the world, where every dish is a work of art, every guest is a VIP, and the chef is a living legend. But tonight, the menu comes with a deadly twist. Welcome to Movie Spotlight, where the meal of a lifetime could be your last. At the local harbor, Tyler and his date Margot wait for the boat that will take them to a private island, an extremely exclusive restaurant operated by the best chef in the country. When the boat arrives, the two of them are shocked to see how many important people will be traveling with them. The ones that get Margot's attention, though, are businessman Richard and his wife Anne, because Margot knows Richard. During the trip, they're already served the first fancy dish, and Tyler gushes over it while he takes a picture. But Margot isn't impressed. When they finally arrive at the island, before dining, there's a tour for the guests, and Elsa shows the guests all the facilities while explaining the restaurant's employees do all the hunting and farming. That's why everyone lives here. Afterward, they finally enter the restaurant, where they discover the kitchen is an open area that allows them to watch the cooks work. When Richard finally notices Margot's presence, he asks his wife to exchange seats with him so he can have a better view. Elsa informs everyone that they can watch the cooks work, but pictures aren't allowed. Tyler immediately comes closer to point out all the techniques they're using. The first dish is the complimentary appetizer. Lillian takes her time with the food, smelling and tasting everything carefully. But Felicity is busy trying to break up with George. Margot likes the dish, but isn't super into it. So Tyler has to arrogantly explain why this is so important. Slowick comes forward and claps his hand to make all his cooks turn around at the same time, like obedient little soldiers. Then he offers a speech about his work and reminds everyone that they shouldn't just eat, they should savor and relish. Tyler still takes pictures, even if it's forbidden. For the second course, Slowick claps again and explains that bread's the food of the common man. But since his guests aren't common, thus they aren't getting any bread. Tyler absolutely loves it, but Margot finds it insulting. Lillian thinks the emulsion does look slightly split, and as an ironic response, they send a whole bowl of it to her table, ask for bread, but they're denied even when they point out they work for Doug Varick, the actual owner of the island. Elsa creepily tells them that they will eat less than they desire and more than they deserve. Margot refuses to eat her dish, and Tyler tries to take it for himself, only to accidentally break a glass in the process. Slowick immediately comes to the table, and Tyler tries to apologize, but the chef is more interested in knowing why Margot isn't eating. Margot points out there is no food, and Slowick replies that he carefully designed the size of the portions, causing Slowick to leave rather offended and surprise everyone by gently checking on Linda. Margot can't help turning to look at Richard, and Anne notices this, causing her to point out that Margot looks like their dead daughter. With another clap, Slowick announces the third course called Memory, which prompts him to share a memory about his family's old taco nights. To remember that special taco night, the dish is a smoked chicken thigh served with a pair of scissors in it on top of a phone cord. The tortillas were made fresh, but to add a touch of innovation, they've been engraved with a laser machine. But things get even more awkward when they discover the memories on the tortillas. Lillian finds pictures of restaurants that closed because of her bad reviews, and Anne is shocked to see photographs of her husband's private life. One in particular shows Richard going out with a strange woman, but Richard swears it's just a prank. George finds pictures of his role as Dr. Sunshine, a movie that did awful when it came out. Elsa refuses to explain how they acquired that information, and when the men threaten with closing up this place, Elsa cryptically says it won't be necessary. Tyler sees himself taking pictures of the food and thinks Slowick hates him. Margot finds the images insulting and wants to send the dish back. Margot decides to go to the bathroom, and Elsa rushes to stop her from entering a forbidden silver door. When she makes it to the bathroom, Margot gets close to the window to have a smoke and notices an employee running with a pair of angel wings in his arms. At that moment, Slowick comes to ask Margot why she refused to eat again, since he's feeling wounded by her attitude. A moment later, the cooks start the preparations for the fourth course. Slowick introduces everyone to Jeremy, one of his sous chefs who created the next dish called the mess. Jeremy studied in an important culinary school, and his dream has always been to work for Slowick. And while Slowick admits he's talented, he doesn't think Jeremy is great. Slowick asks Jeremy if he wants that life, and when Jeremy says no, Slowick kisses him on both cheeks and steps back before Jeremy takes out a gun. Then Slowick announces the fourth course, and Jeremy ends things in front of anyone. The other cooks aren't surprised by this and watch solemnly. As the body is taken away, Slowick asks everyone to sit down and accept this is part of the show. Everyone begins discussing if the death had been real or not, and Richard has had enough. He tries to leave with Anne, but Elsa stops him, explaining there's no available boat, causing Elsa to order the chefs to grab him and get his ring finger. Guests start freaking out again except for Tyler, who is still enjoying his meal without a care. While Richard wiggles on the floor in pain, Elsa returns the fallen wedding ring to Anne. Slowick once again explains this is part of the menu, and Lillian accepts it. But the others are starting to get afraid. Felicity wants George to have a talk with Slowick since supposedly they're friends. But George confesses he lied to impress her. Elsa brings Margot to the kitchen, where Slowick tells her she's simply wrong. He can tell she isn't a Margot, and that's a problem because she wasn't part of that original menu plan. Slowick wants to know if Margot is on the side of the guests or the restaurants. Not that it matters because everyone's dying tonight anyway. The whole mood in the restaurant is tense and nervous. Soren goes crazy and decides to try to break a window with the chair, but it's made of unbreakable glass, so Elsa just takes him back to his table. The next course is tea served as a palate cleanser, and Slowick takes the chance to ask if anyone has any questions. Tyler makes a stupid question about the tea, but George comes through and wonders what's going on. Slowick explains they are ingredients in a degustation concept, but this shouldn't be a surprise. For example, Lillian is a monster that causes restaurants to close because of her personal taste, and Ted coddles her. The cooks bring more broken emulsion for Lillian, and Elsa brings Margot a kitchen timer saying she has 10 minutes. Then Anne asks for a doctor for Richard, so Slowick points out they've been the most loyal customers for 5 years, yet they can't name a single dish they've eaten here. Slowick worked to become a very exclusive chef, but it wasn't until recently that he finally understood he's been working to satisfy people that can't be satisfied. Bryce reminds him that the actual owner is Doug Verrick, and at that moment, it's revealed that Doug is hanging outside while wearing the angel wings. Dave tries to offer money to save him, and when Slowick turns him down, he tries to run away, only to be stopped by the staff. Bryce points out Doug kept Slowick open through the pandemic, but Slowick complains that Doug kept questioning his menu. Elsa makes a sign with her arms, and Doug is lowered into the sea until he drowns. Suddenly, the timer on Margot's table rings, and she's asked to go see Slowick. Margot admits she isn't supposed to be here, and in return, Slowick admits he can tell Margot's a fellow industry worker. He wants to know why Margot kept staring at Richard, making her confess that she's actually a street worker. Richard had been one of the few clients that managed to rattle her because he wanted her to pretend to be his daughter while they were getting frisky. Both Slowick and Margot agree that they used to enjoy serving others. Afterwards, Slowick takes everyone outside. The next course is presented by sous chef Catherine, who explains Slowick has flirted with her many times, and she's always said no. Slowick didn't fire her, but stopped looking her in the eye, and this inspired the next dish, called Man's Folly. Then Catherine stabs Slowick on his leg and hugs him. Now all the male guests are given a chance to escape. They'll have a head start of 45 seconds, and then the staff will try to catch them. All the men begin running except for Tyler, so Slowick has to send him out there, while Catherine takes the women inside. The women try the sixth course while sharing a table with Catherine, who explains everyone dies was her idea. Lillian's compliments make her cry, and all the other ladies begin offering compliments as well to keep her happy. Anne asks Margot if she knows her husband, and Margot admits she does, but Anne doesn't comment on it. Meanwhile, the staff goes after the men and finds them with no issues, no matter if they went to the forest or the beach. All the men are brought back to the restaurant, and George sarcastically apologizes to Felicity for being a failure, which makes her admit she's been stealing money from him. Suddenly, Slowick announces the menu can continue as planned until they solve an unresolved matter. He approaches Tyler and makes him confess that he had always known tonight's menu would include everyone die. Tyler had a date, but his girlfriend broke up with him, so he hired Margot because the restaurant didn't take reservations for just one, never caring about the fact she'd die. Margot's upset by this revelation and attacks Tyler, but the staff quickly pulls them apart. Next, Slowick points out how much Tyler knows about food and gifts him a chef's uniform before pushing into the kitchen, asking him to cook in front of everyone even if Tyler doesn't want to. Tyler's cooking is messy, especially since Slowick keeps making fun of him for being Mr. Knowledgeable Foodie, whispers something in his ear that causes Tyler to take off the chef jacket and run in tears. Afterward, Slowick takes Margot aside to ask for a favor. To start preparing dessert, they require a large barrel that is supposed to be in a corner, but Elsa forgot to bring. Slowick wants Margot to go get it, and ignores Elsa when she says the staff can do it. On her way out, Margot discovers Tyler has ended things for himself, but she doesn't care. Then Slowick returns to the dining area, where George points out that this isn't really fair. Slowick explains George is being punished because he saw Dr. Sunshine some years ago and ruined the first day off he had in months. Meanwhile, Margot makes it to the smokehouse, but instead of grabbing the barrel, she grabs a knife. Afterward, she sneaks into Slowick's house, which is an exact copy of the restaurant but with a bed in it. Margot tries to leave through the silver door, but she's interrupted by Elsa, who has her own knife and reminds her this area is out of limits. Suddenly, Elsa attacks Margot, explaining she doesn't want to be replaced. Margot defends herself with objects from the kitchen as she points out she doesn't want to work here. Margot ends up accidentally killing Elsa. After her initial panic is over, Margot takes Elsa's keys and opens the silver door. There she finds a simple room with Slowik's memories from when he was younger and happier with a family and a job making hamburgers. Back in the restaurant, Bryce is presented with a cake because his friends had told the restaurant that it was his birthday. Margot suddenly interrupts by entering with the barrel through the main door, and Slowik tells her he used to be a monster. At that moment, a boat approaches the island, and Slowik realizes Margot used the radio. The staff immediately cleans all traces of blood from everyone, and Slowik makes a threat. If the guests ask for help, then an innocent man will die. Coast Guard Dale enters the restaurant and asks what the problem is, but nobody dares to speak. Then Dale notices George and asks for an autograph because he's a big fan of Dr. Sunshine. So George pretends to give him one. When Dale is about to leave, he discovers the piece of paper actually says, "Help us," and takes out a gun, ready to defend the guests, that only to suddenly turn around and point it at the candle on Margot's table, revealing it's just a lighter shaped like a gun. Dale isn't a Coast Guard. He's another member of Slowik's staff, and now he can return to the kitchen. Slowik's very disappointed in Margot for having betrayed him and declares her to be as bad as the other guests. Margot remembers what she saw in the house and decides to take a risk. She suddenly claps to get Slowik's attention, announcing that she doesn't like his food and that she would like to send it back. Slowik falls for Margot's manipulative tactics, as she points out all the dishes were an intellectual exercise rather than something to enjoy. She's still hungry, so she wants to eat a proper cheeseburger. For the first time in the day, Slowik smiles and accepts to prepare a traditional cheeseburger with fries for $9.95, which he presents to Margot with pride. Margot gives it a bite and approves of the taste, but she also thinks it's too much for her to finish and asks for the rest to go. Slowik's still in a trance, so she does as he says, and once Margot has her bag, she leaves a $10 bill and leaves the restaurant. On her way out, Margot hesitates because the others are still in danger, but Anne tells her to go with a gesture. While Margot makes it to the harbor and escapes on the boat Dale left behind, Slowik reminds everyone it's time to pay. The cost is $1,250 per head under a no-tip system, and everyone gets a bag of goodies that includes one of Doug's fingers. Everyone hands their credit cards, and a moment later, Slowik announces it's time for dessert. The cooks begin decorating the floor as if it was a plate. Then they put chocolate hats and marshmallow vests on the guests. Slowik reminds everyone they represent the ruin of his life. Thus, Slowik grabs a lump of coal from the oven with his bare hands and announces a cleansing as he throws it on the decorations the cooks left, causing a fire that takes over the restaurant and all the people in it. Meanwhile, Margot stops the boat to finish her cheeseburger while watching the restaurant burn. Sometimes the most satisfying escape isn't from hunger, but from the secrets that threaten to devour us. So, next time you crave a taste of luxury, remember some menus are best left untasted. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring movie stories. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.